Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan. Hello, everybody, and once again, welcome to our show. For those of you who don't know me, my name is W.J. Sheehan, author of a series of books conveniently titled Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters, 9 volumes available in paperback, ebook, and Kindle at Amazon.com, and volumes 1 through 8 are available at Audible, iTunes, and Amazon as well in audio format. So may I encourage you to go out and purchase a copy or two for yourself. And now, may I introduce you to my brother and podcast co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great, but as you can see, I got a cranky Martha in the background.
I hear the Martha Hound back there tonight.
Yeah, she's normally sleeping, but apparently she's a little upset this evening. So I apologize, folks, but it's hard to calm down a 15-year-old Labrador Retriever.
It is.
I assure you that no Labradors were hurt during this podcast.
None were hurt yet.
No, she's just getting a little Parkinson's or something going on in the Labrador brain.
Well, you know, Kev, we got to make the best of our time these days, as we said in the last podcast.
No, and she was calm for 45 minutes, Bill, before we got on the Skype call, and she's in her house. She's fed. She's medicated. It's dark out there. She's all good. She can't hear me because she's deaf, but she's upset about something. So I'm sorry, folks.
We're going to have to live with it.
We're going to have to live with it.
And by the way, Kev, folks, Kevin and I are both Yankee fans, so you're going to have to put up with us. But at the time of making this podcast, our illustrious Aaron Judge popped 2 more dingers out of the park today in Milwaukee. I thought that was pretty interesting,
It
Kev.
is fantastic. He's at 59 home runs this season. I think he's the only right-handed batter to hit that many. And he's in pursuit of Roger Maris, who did 61, of course, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. I like Aaron Judge. I mean, I liked him before he hit 59 home runs, but just a beast on the baseball diamond.
Yeah, no, it's good to see, and he's a decent fella, too, you know?
Well, and the amazing part is, Bill, he's hitting all these home runs, but he's getting a tremendous number of hits as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. He's just an all-around fantastic ball player, you know?
Yeah, as you know, I was in the car today driving home from Philadelphia after visiting some family up there, and we were listening to the Milwaukee Brewers broadcast on satellite radio on the way down, and they even named him the MVP of the game. You know, even with Milwaukee home brewing or home cooking.
Yeah. Well, you know, onward we go, you know, right? We'll see what happens.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, let's see. Now the Yanks are going home. I think they have a day off tomorrow, and then they have a home stand, so maybe good old A.A. Ron will break Roger Maris's record in Yankee Stadium. That would be cool.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, super cool.
So, what is on the agenda today, my brother, in our Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities segment?
Yeah, we're going to go to the sky, Bill, and we're going to talk about a UFO incident that happened back in June of 1996.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Yeah, a while ago, but not ancient times by any means.
Right.
And this happened. This is known as the Varginha UFO incident, and I hope my pronunciation is okay. But Varginha is a city in Brazil, in South America, that is basically inland between the two coastal cities of Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo.
Yeah, and by the way, I believe in Spanish, Varginha.
Oh, could be.
Varginha.
Listen to the pronunciation, but of course it's Portuguese, not Spanish in Brazil.
They kind of blend.
Yeah. Don't tell them that, though. But I haven't been to Varginha in the past, but I do understand that it's a strong city of commerce, and it's a place where they produce a lot of coffee as well. And I love me some coffee.
Yeah, you and me both.
Exactly. Coffee achiever. So now, have you heard of this account before, Bill?
I have to say this is one account I have some familiarity with.
Oh, good. Because, folks, if you're new listeners, Bill and I rarely share what we're going to talk about prior to the podcast. So, and this is in keeping with that, but I've been looking at this for a while. And in this account, there were 3 women ranging from 14 years old to 22 years old. And they were basically 2 sisters, Liliane and Valkyria Fatima Silva, and their friend Katia Andrade Xavier. And they allegedly saw this creature, an alien creature, as they described it, on January 20th, 1996. And they said it was about 5 feet tall. It was a biped with a large head and a very thin body and V-shaped feet, brown skin, large red eyes. Sorry about the red eyes, Bill, but let's say it had large red eyes. And it also seemed to be wobbly or unsteady. And the girls, therefore, assumed that it was injured or sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, where were they when they had this encounter?
They were just outside of town, and they were roaming along the road during apparently some intense rain and strong winds.
Nighttime?
So daytime.
Daytime, okay.
Yeah, a little bit of a storm cooking up when they saw it.
Yeah, and no sighting of a craft or anything.
No, but there is a couple of other folks, Aurelina and Eurico de Freitas, who were owners of a farm in town, reportedly saw a large UFO hovering over their cattle. And they noticed it first because their animals were very agitated, and they didn't know what was going on. And then they looked up and saw this flying object over the herd of cattle, and they said that it hovered over their field for about 40 minutes. Yeah, 40 minutes.
Yeah, not a fleeting sighting at all.
No,
40 minutes is a
40
long.
Minutes.
That's a long time.
And they talked about it as like a cigar-shaped craft.
Wow.
Yeah.
So all of these things, it just reminds me briefly about a number of incidents at Skinwalker.
Same thing I was thinking of, Bill, of course. As soon as I was researching this account, and they talked about they saw the cattle were agitated, and then they happened to see this craft over the field of cattle.
Right.
Which is exactly what happened at Skinwalker, right?
Yeah. That one was isolated, too. You remember that died.
Absolutely.
And when he reviewed the frame-by-frame footage, that disc appeared above the tree in the background and the cow actually lifted its head up at the time the disc appeared in the frame.
Exactly.
That was, that whole. What do you make of that? That whole thing with these craft and whatever these things are inside of them, and the interest in cattle.
I don't know. Okay, so I'll give a contrarian view. I don't know that they're interested in cattle. I know you have all these cattle mutilations and stuff like that, but I just think that people are out in rural places and they see these things, and there happens to be cattle there, and the animal get agitated, which we know, animals get agitated whenever there's anything wrong, right? Whether it's a low pressure system, tornado, whatever it is, they tend to sense that something's wrong. Even an earthquake, right?
Yeah.
Certain types of animals know an earthquake is coming before we feel it as humans.
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing about Japan. They say the animals just split before an earthquake is coming.
And the tsunami, yeah. The earthquake and tsunami there.
They are way, way, way more sensitive than a human being is.
Right.
So,
of course, these days we're all looking at our telephones, so.
Yeah. Please don't remind me. God, I can't stand it.
But what's pretty interesting, there's a lot of interesting things about this account, but there was, in fact, an article in the Wall Street Journal about this account on June 28th, 1996. And the title of it, you'll like, Bill, is called Tale of Stinky Extraterrestrials Stirs Up UFO Crowd in Brazil. Yeah.
That was in the Times?
No, the Wall Street Journal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they said, so some of the accounts here, I'll read you some of the quotes because they're pretty good. And these are some of the ladies that saw the creature that I talked about earlier. They said it wasn't a man or an animal. It was something different. It had oily brown skin and rubbery limbs.
Ugh.
3 rounded protrusions sprouted from its oversized head. And then standing out in a different way was the creature's odor. One ghastly whiff weakened the knees.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard of an odor.
I know.
So maybe there really was some type of decay or something was going on with this thing.
Yeah, maybe it was injured or something like that.
Did anybody find a crashed vehicle of any kind?
Well, so that's the interesting thing about this encounter is that there's a large circle of controversy that, the military in this area of Brazil intervened and, attacked the aliens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it's not clear whether this is true or not, but the military had, a reputation for, being a little heavy-handed, apparently, according to the articles I read in this part of Brazil. So the locals attributed everything that was going on to and what happened to the aliens to the military intervening and, basically killing or wiping out the aliens.
So you had this one couple who saw this cigar-shaped crash over their homestead.
The craft, over their homestead with the cattle.
In the air. And then you had the 3 girls or women.
3 women that saw the alien.
On a street or a pathway somewhere.
Yep. And then there's others that reported seeing all different kinds of things. Of course, it wasn't just these 5 people or would never make it to the Wall Street Journal, right? Mm-hmm. And then they went out and they interviewed the military and stuff like that, but they talked about the fact that it was kind of handed all the way up the chain of command and then handed all the way down the chain of command till they got to some kind of generic spokesperson. And they explained that they did have a lot of activity on the base that night, but it was basically they were training some new sergeants and stuff like that, which, the way I read it, it didn't sound that sincere. I have no data to prove that, but it just sounded like the typical, government mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, exactly. But no witnesses coming forward saying they heard like repeated gunfire of any kind.
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Well, I don't know. It's certainly. And how did it end for the ladies on the street?
They just, got a little bit of fame related to this. Like they went home, one of them told their mother, and they came back to the site, and the creature wasn't there, but they did smell this stink from the creature, which was interesting. And even their mother noted the smell.
Yeah.
It was like a strong, foul smell, but also with a lot of ammonia smell.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Wow. So they must have just left the scene kind of in fear or whatever after they got a good look at it. They were looking at each
what are
other
you going to do, right? You're like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's time to go.
Exactly. Time to go.
Yeah. That's what I would do.
Time to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't be hanging around there either,
No.
You don't know what's going to go on or what the capabilities of such a thing are or what else is around.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And who at this point in time, or even in 1996, had no familiarity whatsoever with the, quote, UFO phenomena. All of these girls had probably their own thoughts about what they were looking at and what possibly could be around,
100%. They didn't know what it was, and then but they didn't see the craft.
Yeah.
Right? They just saw this weird-looking thing that was unearthly and completely strange and plain as day right in front of them. About 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
With this head and protrusions coming out of its head, non-human, non-animal.
Yeah.
Right? Their description.
Right.
So very, very strange.
Yeah, and also walking around in a rain and windstorm.
Yes.
No clothes on, whatever it is, it was naked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole thing would just be like ultra strange. But good that there was 3 girls together.
Yeah, not just one, right?
Yeah, because all 3 of them can confirm each other's sighting and what they speak of,
Right, and then one of their mothers came out to the site and confirmed the smell, right, the stench.
Yeah. Boy, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of that. But, you can't be in denial of what people are saying and what they're seeing. Now, what it is an entirely another thing in itself. But the fact that people are seeing something, it's no different than Bigfoot. When you have multiple witnesses, like in our last podcast, 2 fly fishermen up in B.C., if you don't want to believe one guy, are you saying you don't believe 2 guys?
Exactly.
What about 3 or 4 or 5 guys? You just don't believe anybody, So I'm not in that camp, by the way, which is why I make a point of it. But 3 ladies walking down the road, encountering this thing and reporting it is good enough for me.
No, and then, what attracts me is that you have bona fide journalists, like from the Wall Street Journal, writing about it. And by the way, not on April Fool's Day,
Yeah. Good point.
Of course, we see a lot of those articles where I look at the date and I'm like, oh, April 1st, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, we forget about April 1st. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, Kev.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's another mystery from the skies, which, I love, and it goes on top of, all of our chats about the Webb telescope lately and discovering all these galaxies all around us, and it really starts to make you feel like, whatever you believe, it's hard to believe that we're the only life, out here.
Right.
We're not the center of everything, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, but not by any means.
Not by any means.
Where all these things are coming from, whether they're different dimensions or different planets, we'll never know. in this life anyway.
I mean, unless we run into one of them and they start chatting with us,
Yeah.
Which could happen. You never know. I don't know how that ends, though. It could be wonderful. It could be terrible and cataclysmic.
Hey, Kev, he might make a good salesman. Maybe he can take over the mind of his client and make him buy a lot of stuff.
Hey, there you go. Maybe. I could see him talking like Homer Simpson, and then Homer Simpson being like, donuts.
Well, I tell you, that was an excellent story there. And I have something, I'm going to get into it here, obviously, like I always do, but I challenge you to kind of tell me what you think after you hear what happened to a fellow named Guthrie Ennis, a resident of eastern Pennsylvania. This is what Guthrie had to say. In 1979, I had gone into the eastern hill country of Pennsylvania deer hunting. As was my normal routine in the fall of every year. At that time, I had a CJ, so a Jeep CJ with a full roll bar installed that I used for my hunts. In this particular location, I had parked about 100 yards or so from the road and hiked in to where I had set up a stand in the woods. We were already on the receiving end of some snowfall, but the deer population was robust. And so on my very first morning, on the first day of the season, I had tagged a buck and left the woods. 4 days later, on a Wednesday, I returned to the same area and parked in the same location as I had on Saturday. There was a light snowfall coming down as I entered the woods about 30 minutes before sunrise. I hiked in and climbed up into the stand in the hope of getting another buck. I sat there for about an hour, having seen nothing as of yet, when suddenly I heard something behind me that sounded like a car hitting a tree, but more quietly than a high-speed crash. Visualize yourself clipping a tree while backing into your driveway at night and, say, smashing your taillight in the process. It was more like a crunch than a loud impact. This sound had come from behind me, which was the direction I had hiked in from, as well as the place where I had parked the CJ. The area I was hunting in was private land owned by a fella I knew from work whose family owned it. And there was no one else but me in there that day. The road that I had come in on was old, rutted, blacktop for the first quarter mile or so. And then it became nothing more than a dirt fire trail of sorts for the entire stretch leading up to where I had parked. So hearing this noise was very strange in regards to believing it was a vehicle crunching into a tree, with the only vehicle being mine, and it was parked in an opening on the shoulder of this trail. 2 hours had passed. I hadn't even seen a deer, which was very odd for the area. So I climbed down out of the stand. I secured my gear and started heading back to the truck. As soon as I was in range of my CJ, and now had it in sight, I could see the truck leaning on a tree. 2 of its wheels were in the air, and part of its roof was up against a large tree that was next to it. Before I moved any further, I began to scope out what I could, looking for the culprits who had tipped my truck. Seeing nobody, I walked out to the CJ. If the tree hadn't been there, it would have been on its side, but the tree was holding it up at about the midway point. The side of the hardtop was crushed in, and the window had popped out of its frame and smashed, which must have been what I had heard even at a couple of 100 yards distance. Putting my gear down, I leveraged my body against the truck's roof and was able to flip it back down to the upright position. I walked around the truck to see what, if anything else, had been damaged. It was then, as I looked down on the ground on the driver's side, that I saw large footprints in the snow along that side of the truck, as well as prints both coming to and leading away from the truck across the trail. They were those of huge bare feet, similar to a human's, only wider and longer, with the toes being very fat and wide. The snow at this time was still falling, and what I was looking at had been made in about a 2-inch base of snow, with some snow having fallen into them. I immediately said to myself, Bigfoot. Having seen the In Search Of show on the creature, as well as having heard the stories coming out of the Pacific Northwest, I frankly couldn't believe my eyes. And the fact that this thing was able, by itself apparently, to shove my Jeep over against this tree was remarkable. I was fortunate that it had landed in the exact position it had. Otherwise, I couldn't have toppled it back to the righted position alone. There had been many a tale in this area of Pennsylvania about similar creatures being seen and even shot in the 1800s and early 1900s. But as far as I was concerned, they were old wives' tales, like those told about werewolves and the like. To date, I haven't seen so much as any further indication of creatures such as this being around. And although at this stage of my life I don't hunt anymore, being frankly too old to do so, I know many others who do, none of whom say they have seen such a creature in the state either. It was very odd, to say the least, and I thought that you may be interested. Well, Guthrie, I am interested, and so are you, my listeners. And Kev, what do you make of this?
Yeah, so that's wild. So Guthrie didn't see anything other than the fact that obviously something turned his Jeep on its side.
Right, and he saw footprints.
Oh, and the footprints. Okay, so that's key.
Yeah, so he saw footprints, large, basically shoeless, human type, as we've heard 1,000 times, footprints in a 2-inch bed of snow.
Yeah, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah, you know, when you get a print in 2 inches of snow, it's pretty spot on. And if you listen to the way this guy drove into this place, you know, he's on land owned by somebody else. Not to say somebody else couldn't have been there, right? People go on other guys' lands all the time. Right. But it didn't sound that way to me. And, you know, the fact that he also added in the end there how he had spoke of it to other people and asked them, and nobody apparently will fess up to seeing anything. And he said he hadn't seen anything more himself.
No, I mean, it makes sense, yeah. But yeah, the footprints in the snow especially, right? Because snow is, it'll tell you if there's any other people or creatures around, right? It's hard to make the snowfall in your tracks that you want to hide, so to speak.
Yeah, no, you're not going to... You know, and you can imagine it probably looked like it does in our yard when it's first small.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Pristine. You know, it's just pristine in nature, a fresh blanket of snow. Anything, even a raccoon or a rabbit that hops around in there, you see the indication it was there.
Oh, yeah. Deer, whatever.
Yeah, anything. So I thought that was pretty interesting, too. And what this creature wanted with his Jeep, or maybe it was just like, aggravated that this thing was in its turf. And again, we don't know what experiences this creature or these creatures have had with human beings.
Yeah, I mean, we only guess, Bill. Like,
Right.
we've said before that maybe the creature doesn't like him taking the game from the creature's land, right?
Yeah,
You're stealing my food. Who the heck knows? So maybe he just doesn't like the way he smells.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't like combustion engines. We don't know anything.
Maybe he doesn't like the way you look. You got me?
Hey.
Hey.
Maybe the guy's a Red Sox fan.
No
Just
offense.
saying.
No offense to our Bostonian Red Sox fans.
Yeah. As far as my brother says.
Oh, man. So that's interesting. The Jeep, Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's Eastern Pennsylvania. It's a bit of a hotbed.
Yeah, Eastern Hill Country in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
he said.
Yeah.
There's more than a few accounts of a variety of different things coming out of that region.
No, definitely a hotbed.
And by the way, folks, if you live there or anywhere and you've had some type of sighting or encounter that you'd like to share with us, just go to our website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, click on the contact button, and shoot us out a little ditty, if you will, on what you have to say, and I'll get back to you. I'd like to have a conversation with you.
If you've seen something, say something.
That's right. Whatever it may be. Kevin, I'm just listening to Martha, boy.
I know.
The poor hound is really, wound up.
She just wound up, but she's okay.
Yeah.
I assure you, folks, she's okay.
She's okay.
She's
really
got a little bit of Labrador Alzheimer's, is what our veterinarian says.
Uh-huh.
At 15 years old, and 15 years old as a Labrador Retriever. Do the dog math, right? 15 times 7. It's great that she made it this far, but at night she gets anxiety. Usually she settles down by now, but I don't know. I'll check on her again after we're finished.
Yeah, maybe give her a stack of waffles with some maple syrup.
Yeah, there you go. I'll make up some pancakes. That'll do it. Anything for food.
Oh, my God. So, Kev, what do we have in our listener mail this evening?
Yeah, we got some good ones, Bill. First off, we have a letter coming in from Diane, who won our last contest, right?
That's right.
And Diane said, first off, I want to say that I was sorry to hear of the passing of your wife, Bill. You're in my thoughts and prayers. And then she writes, second, we. And she says, that's for you, Kevin. And she says, the memorizing of tongue twisters in grade school has paid off, while how to use a protractor, not so much.
In reference to the how much wood could a woodchuck chuck?
Exactly. And then she also wrote in, she said, Kevin, you read my joke on the air a couple of weeks ago, which I didn't put that together, about arugula.
Yes.
And she said, my grown kids cannot believe I wrote you. They think I fell off the turnip truck several miles back. And winning this book will not be getting me back on the turnip truck in their minds. Which, believe me, Diane, Bill and I know where you come from there.
Yeah, and of course the arugula was in reference to the joke where she said, what was Aruguru's favorite vegetable or something?
Yeah, it wasn't even Aruguru, but it was something, and we said it would be better if it was Aruguru.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Was
We
something.
made it better, Bill.
Yeah.
But Diane does finish up by saying, I look forward to your podcast every weekend. Your love and respect for one another is delightful to listen to.
Delightful.
So that's nice. Delightful. She says, but try and keep that Labrador Retriever quiet from now on.
No, she didn't say that.
No, I know. But she will. She'll write in next week and say, what are you doing to that dog?
Oh, my goodness.
I told you at the beginning, no Labradors were harmed in the recording of this podcast.
Yeah, and by the way, Diane, you'll probably have your book by the time you're listening to this. But I did send out her book.
Oh, that's good. It's always good to give out the prize, Bill, for the contest that you hold. I know you don't always do that.
Sometimes you change your mind. It's a nice book.
And by the way, Diane, I'm still waiting for my book, so tell me how it is.
Kev, you haven't won a contest.
I know. I've heard that.
Oh, wow. So what else? Who else wrote it to us?
All right. So Alan from the Pacific Northwest writes in about paranormal. And he said, I have had 2 out-of-body experiences, seen 3 UFOs, and lived in a haunted house in Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
And he gives the coordinates of where he lived. I'm not going to give that out, though. But he says if you go on maps, you'll see an apartment building amongst 99% of old houses there in Portland. Uh-huh. And he says that's where I lived in the 70s, in the haunted house.
Wow.
He said, I've never seen a Bigfoot, but I skateboarded from Ape Caves toward Ape Caves turnoff to the bottom of the hill a couple of times in 95. Huh. I lived in Meadow Glade, Washington, when Mount St. Helens went off.
Yeah.
And he says, and I've never submitted my stories to a podcast. Thanks again. And my daughter said, you sound exactly like Click and Clack, the car guys. Which is awesome.
Remember those 2 guys? Could you tell me again, ma'am, the noise your car was making?
Yeah. And they would make them say, clickety clack, 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 clickety clack, clack, clack. And they'd be like, you sure it wasn't like whir, whir? Or
Yeah, it was making some kind of strange noise. Yeah. Oh, my God.
But anyway, so it's pretty interesting. Like, Alan, man, living in Meadow Glade, Washington, when Mount St. Helens went off, you got to talk to us about that, because I've talked about the fact that I lived in Spokane, Washington, for 4 years back in the 90s, but it was after Mount St. Helens went off. But I still saw all of the evidence of the ashes, or the multiple feet of ash on I-90. Interstate 90 heading west towards Seattle. And then I heard the stories. People would say, even in Spokane, which was pretty far away, east of Mount St. Helens, out on the Idaho border, and they said, you couldn't see the sun for a week or 2 weeks, and cars wouldn't start because all the air filtration was clogged, etc.
Yeah.
Just crazy stuff.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah.
And we had that encounter that I went over about the guy that was hunting in sight of the mountain when it blew up that day.
Exactly.
And
we've all seen the footage of the explosion, how it blew down all of those tall pine trees, a mile or 2 around the mountain, just toppled them over.
Yeah.
In a direction radiating from the center of the blast.
Yeah, that was very
crazy
much
stuff.
Yeah, very much akin to like a nuclear bomb going off or something,
Absolutely.
Bang, and that's it. Get out of the way.
Yeah. So, Al, we'd love to hear more about that. That's definitely another oddity for my segment of cryptids in the news and other oddities. We haven't heard from anyone writing in or calling in to tell us about their experience during the eruption of Mount St. Helens, which I think would be pretty cool.
It would be very cool, and I encourage people to reach out in a greater way. Be willing to share and spend a little time.
100%.
Because it's fantastic. I mean, this guy was in a haunted house. I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah.
I'd like to know about the UFO encounters he had, no matter how fleeting they may be. And I'd like to hear what it was like being around that area when St. Helens blew.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, there's a cornucopia of info there waiting to be, listened to, and I want to hear it.
Yeah. And then our last letter, Bill, this week comes in from the far reaches of Bangalore, India.
Wow.
Yeah, from Srinivas.
Wow.
And Srinivas writes in, "Hi, WJ and KJ. I love the podcast. I have been to California, and it is wonderful, but I need to get up to the Pacific Northwest next time I am back."
Okay.
And he says, "Have you been to India, and do you know anything about our cryptids beyond the Yeti up north?
Wow.
Best regards, Srinivas."
Well, Kev, why don't you answer that question?
Yeah, I have been to India about a dozen times, Srinivas, and I have been to Bangalore. Mostly I go up to New Delhi, and right before the pandemic hit, I went up to see the Taj Mahal as well.
Yeah.
Which is just unbelievable, one of the wonders of the world for sure.
Yeah.
Bangalore, I was in Bangalore probably 10 years ago last. And, of course, one of the tech cities in India that's just expanding tremendously. I told one of my friends who was from India where I was staying in northern Bangalore, and he was saying that like 5 years prior, there were wild tigers roaming around that part of Bangalore. So it gives you an idea of how fast it expands. And Srinivas, of course, we know about the Yeti up north. And we've talked about the Yeti, but I have not heard about some of the other cryptids in India. So you have piqued my interest. So definitely write in and tell us a little bit more about some of these cryptids. And I will put it on my research list as well to check out what else is going on in India.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. And the Taj Mahal, man, what a place that is.
Oh, my God, Bill. It was... by the way, it's like, I flew in there when I went to the Taj on the weekend. I flew into New Delhi, up north of Bangalore, and it's about a 4-hour ride in a car up to the Taj Mahal. I mean, the Taj Mahal is kind of in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't fly in there. So 4 hours each way, day trip. Mm-hmm. But spectacular, completely worth it. I will do it again, no doubt. But also, when I was up there, it was in the summertime, and Bill, it was about 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
How can you survive?
I knew it was going to be hot, so I had on my layers and reflective clothes and my big wide-brimmed hat and plenty of bottles of water and stuff like that. But it was like, it was really hot.
If I'm not mistaken, I have a couple of fellas from India that I work with. And this one guy, Thomas, I think it was him one day, he said that people come to that site bringing donations, money, jewelry, and whatnot, every day.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's a... a lot of people don't know. Like, they think it's a big palace, but it's actually a mausoleum. Mm-hmm. This king, they didn't call him a king, I don't think. I forget now. But he built it for his wife, and his wife is buried there, and then he's buried there as well. But it's a mausoleum. It's not... It looks like a palace from the outside, but really when you walk into it, all there is the crypt, so to speak.
Right, but apparently it's a venerated site over there.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the 7 or 8 wonders of the world, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it,
Yeah, but I'm saying it's hard to get to, too. Like, you don't just fly in and take the shuttle over.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to go there with intent.
Absolutely.
You want to be there,
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's
Super
interesting,
cool.
man. That's it.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, Srinivas. And, Bill, I'll probably end there with the mail so I can take care of this Labrador Retriever and see what's if she's got a thorn in her paw. Of course, I'm just kidding. She doesn't have a thorn in her paw.
Yeah.
But great podcast, Bill. Good chatting. And folks, keep those 5-star reviews coming. And we really appreciate your listener mail as well. Send it in to BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Contact us.
Yeah, and fantastic little exegesis on that alien encounter. You know, all of that stuff is interesting to me. And all of this whole cornucopia of sightings, UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever it may be, hauntings, it's all grist for the mill, as I say. And by the way, if you should find yourself rolling around in your Jeep in the woods of Pennsylvania or any other state or place on the planet, if you get out of that Jeep, or even when you're in the Jeep, you better remember one thing, my friend. Always carry more gun than you think you're gonna need. Sleep tight.